What up, what up? What up? So this is going to be kind of a two-part video. I am gain matching 3 amplifiers at the same time using the DD ZVL. First, you buy a ZVL, right? Then you have your amplifiers. They have to be strappable, okay? This is not gonna work on your Brazilian full bridge amps. They gotta be half bridge, strappable amps. And a good way to tell if your amps are strappable, it'll have this on it. It'll have an output master, input slave, and an RCA input. And it might even have an RCA output right there as well, but it has to have that on it. Okay, and what that means is these amps are strappable. So on the ZVL, up there you just got your regular, negative, positive, and a remote in. It has a remote out, that's what the other spot is for, but I'm not using it, all right? And up there it's also got your gain, subsonic, and low pass. I'm doing my low pass through my head unit, but it's basically if you set your low pass to 80 hertz, your subs will play 80 hertz and below. The subsonic is to cut off that lower frequency. So you set that at, all the way down to 10, which is the lowest it goes, because you want them low lows. Down here, you have an input, okay? This is coming from your head unit, and then you have outputs, okay? Run each one, run an RCA to each of your amps in this port, not these down here, and you bypass those. And so what that does is this ZVL controls all of your settings, and it'll control them all for all 3 of your amplifiers. So you're following along, RCA input, your outputs, okay? So 1, 2, 3. I got 1, 2, 3. Every single one is set up there. And all my switches are switched to input slave, not output master. So all 3 of my amps are in slave mode. And this ZVL is controlling them. So what I do is then I set my gain, right? I go ahead and set the gain on the ZVL to 0. Then I turn up my volume on my head unit till I have max clean output out through my RCAs, okay? You can hook an O-scope up to your RCAs and see where your RCA will clip at. And then that's your volume level that you want to be. So I do volume 32 because that's basically max clean signal, okay? So then I run a negative 40 test tone from DJ Dirty Bass. And then I come back here, right to the gain knob, and I slowly turn that gain knob up until one of my amplifiers starts to clip. I have 3 amps. They might all clip at different levels, but when the first one starts to clip, then I back off to where it's not clipping, and then that's where it's all set at, okay? So that was a quick rundown, kind of got straight to the point. Now, for the second part of the video, I'll kind of go more in depth and a little bit more about the process of why I did this and how I did it. Check it out. How y'all doing? If you've watched my previous videos, you know that I have a slight phasing issue, and I've gain matched these amplifiers 2 or 3 times already, and I'm having a slight phasing issue with one of my amplifiers. When I gain match them, 2 of my amplifiers will clip at 120 volt AC, one of them at 110. And so I think that lower one is giving me an issue. Yes, I set these other ones at 110. They're all at 110.7, okay? They're all exactly the same, but I still have a slight phasing issue. And I don't want to mess with the actual phase while it's playing and stuff like that, just because I don't like to do that. So, everybody does things a little bit differently. You might set your gains with your speakers hooked up because the impedance is going to change when you hook up your subs. I know that. I agree with you. That's cool. Do whatever you want to do. Me, this is how I do it, and this is how I've always done it. And right now, it's not working for me, and I'll admit that. So I've talked to a lot of people, and it seems like this is going to be my option. What is this? Is that DD? It sure is. I went and picked up the DD ZVL. It is, I don't even know what the actual name of it is supposed to be. Basically what it does is some sort of a signal processor where you run your RCAs from your head unit or your DSP or whatever. Run your RCAs to the ZVL and then to your amplifiers. You'll set your amplifiers in slave mode like they're being strapped. And from what I gather, you know, this will control all of your amplifiers. So your gain should be at 100%, your phase should match 100%. I've heard great things about it. I've heard some not so good things about it. I know Jerry Ain't Loud didn't like it when he messed with it in somebody's car, but he also said he didn't do the install, so it might not have, you know, something could be messed up. If you watch that video, on a bunch of the comments, people said the switches in the ZVL might have not been set up right. So what they're talking about inside here are a bunch of little switches. So all these things right here, where it says pass, pre, link, strap, these are all switches for each input. It comes preset a certain way, okay? They say that. In the owner's manual, it has internal jumper configurations, and it walks you through all this. If you do this, you need to look at it and set it up according to your own build. Right now, it's got the first 4 channels a certain way, and channel 5 is set differently. So if you don't pay attention to it, something could be messed up. I'm not going to bore you with all the mumbo jumbo technical stuff, because honestly, I don't quite know how it works, okay? It's magic. I don't know. I'm not the smartest at this. I'm not the loudest, I'm not the windiest, I'm not the smartest. This is just what I do, okay? And it's going decently. So I'm gonna hook this up. Fell hooked up. It has fixed my problem. It took me a while to figure it out, okay? I'm not an expert at this. Like I said, I've never used this thing before. I had to figure it out. And that's exactly why I'm making these videos, is to help y'all figure it out too, okay? So, the ZVL takes a positive and a negative from a battery source, and it's got a remote in so it knows when to turn on. Let me turn you around and walk you through this. So, right here, I have a negative and a positive running to my battery. It goes, I'll show you. It goes all the way straight to my battery. It was just easier for me to hook it up right here. So a negative and positive from my battery. It needs a remote turn on wire. What I did is I took a wire and I ran it underneath and I just tied it in with my remote to turn on my amp. On the bottom side, I have my input source from my head unit, and then I have an RCA running from input 1, 2, and 3 going to each one of my amplifiers. in the linkable slot up here. I'm not using these. You plug it into that one. So I got it all hooked up. I went and I put my test tone on, my head unit, my DJ Dirty Bass, negative 5 dB, 40 hertz test tone, and I set it up to, I used volume 32 because that's what my head unit likes. And then I came back here, and I actually did it on my phone because I'm by myself, and so I could turn it down back here so my amps just weren't full the whole time. So I came back here and I turned up the gain knob on the ZVL until one of my amplifiers started to clip. All three of my amps have clip lights. That turned out to be, it's like 113 volts. Earlier I got 110 out of the lowest one, but I mean, each time I adjust the voltage and it's different. You know, last time it was like 15.8, this time it's 15.5, 15.6, whatever. I got them at 113. It was actually 112.8. Two of the amps were at 112.8, and the third amp was 113.4 or 6. I can't remember. So they were close. One amp was like a volt off, you know, almost a whole volt AC output off. This was alarming for me because I thought that by setting it up like this, controlling all three amps or one ZVL, that all of my outputs were going to be exactly the same. Like they would all be 112.8, exactly the same. That wasn't the case, okay? So I was under the impression, you know, anytime I've gain matched my amps, if one of them, if the gain is different on an amp, I'm gonna have a phasing issue because it's got one amp's doing more power, so it's moving the subs more, so they're not moving all in sync. One could be a little off because it's being pushed differently. I hooked up my O-scope on the speaker leads and I checked it. They all see, I did it at half power because that's all I could do, the range of my O-scope. They all seem to be in sync on the O-scope. So I messaged some people and asked them, I was like, what do you think about this? They were like, 1 volt, you're probably not gonna notice the difference on that with the O-scope being matching. So I was like, I'll run it, you know, I'll try it out, shoot a slow motion video and then see. So I did that and they all seemed to be working. So apparently this was the answer to my problem. So it worked. Now all my subs are in sync. I'm gonna be louder, I'm gonna be windier. It worked for me. The manuals for this, for me, can be kind of confusing, okay? There's a lot of information, there's a lot of different configurations. It took me some time. I had to sit down and read the manual. I know a lot of people hate doing that. I hate doing that. That's why you watch YouTube videos, right? So I know this video was kind of long, but there's a lot going on here. There's a lot that can go wrong, and you should still read that manual. You know what I'm saying? If you have any questions, I might be able to answer them. I had to talk to multiple people to accomplish this. I'd never used one of these. I have seen them, but I never even looked into them. So I really didn't even know what all it did. I had to figure this out myself, and I was confused at first. I'll admit it. So it is what it is. But y'all have a good one. I know this was a long, boring video, but hopefully it will help at least one person out there. Because if I would have had this video before, it would have helped me out. Y'all have a good one.